Hello, and welcome to Just One Thing from Swell. My name is Jenny. In case we haven't met, I'm Jenny Vance. I'm the Director of Client Experience here at Swell Fundraising. And if you're very brand new to Swell, Swell is a software company. We started in your shoes from within the nonprofit sector. And over the years, we've built a software company that we would want to work with. We're dedicated to support, patience, advice, transparency, and dedication to your success. So this is Just One Thing with Swell. We do this every 2 weeks, and we talk about a topic related to your Swell dashboard that you may already be familiar with, or maybe not if you're brand new. But we talk about one topic, and we teach you tips and tricks to make your campaigns even better. So today we're talking about gamification, and specifically gamification in regards to leaderboards. So we'll get to that in just a moment, but before we do, I want to make sure that we all know how to get around and to ask questions here in sessions, because this may be the first time that you're using this platform. The platform we're using is called Sessions, and it's kind of like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, kind of the same functionality. So here's a quick tour of that. So we're going to go to the next slide. All right, so on the far left-hand corner, if you look down at the bottom, there's a little button that says Show Agenda. Click that, you'll be able to follow along with where we are throughout the presentation today. And then after that, if you look all the way on the right-hand side, you'll see a little button that says Q&A. There's also one for chat. If you have questions or you want to talk to us at any time, you can enter your questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll get to them throughout the presentation. Then we want to go to the middle. There's a little hand, kind of looks like that. And that's where you can send emojis if you'd like to do that. Again, all the way on the right-hand side, there's a space for notes. So those notes are just for you. Nobody else is going to see those. You'll get them after the presentation. All right. And finally, if you need to leave, in the very center, there's a button that looks like a square with an arrow that goes out to the right. That's leave. It's not going to end the session for everyone, just for you. So if you need to leave for any reason, feel free to hit that button and you'll get the recording after this is over. This will also be available in your help desk. I'll give you links to that later on in our presentation. So with that, that's how you get along around sessions. So let's get to today's topic. So today we're talking about gamification. Whoops. Wow, I tripped on that word. Gamification. So before we can really talk about that, we need to make sure that we understand what it is. And so we're going to talk about gamification. Then we're going to talk a little bit about motivation, peer-to-peer fundraising, how to activate your leaderboards, and give you a few tips and tricks. So that's our basic plan today, just so you know where we are. All right, so in the most simple terms, gamification is adding elements of a game to something else. So in this case, we're talking about fundraising. This is adding elements of a game, specifically leaderboards and trophies. That's what we're talking about today, to your events. So you may recognize this quote from Mary Poppins if you're a Disney fan like me. And don't worry, I'm not going to sing it, but this is right before Spoonful of Sugar. In every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game. And I love that quote because it really encapsulates what gamification means. It's finding the fun and putting that fun back in fundraising. So that's what we're talking about today. All right, and welcome. I see more people coming in. Glad to see you. We're so glad you're here. All right, so if we want to infuse our events then with fun, we need to understand a little bit about how people are motivated. So we're going to talk about that first. So people are motivated in two different ways, basically, extrinsically or intrinsically. Extrinsically means that they're motivated by forces outside of themselves. Intrinsically means they're motivated by forces within themselves. And we usually think of that in terms of either or, but I kind of think that it could be both and, right? So you could looking at these examples here, there's just a couple of examples. So you could go to work to earn money. That's an extrinsic motivation. But you could also go to work because you love what you do, which is an intrinsic motivation. So I kind of think we're motivated by both. Humans are very rarely either or, in my opinion. Okay, so we could spend a long time talking about motivation and psychology, but we don't have that kind of time today. We want to be done in about 30 minutes. So we're going to go we're going to pass that now and go past sources of motivation and then talk about peer to peer. This is just another term that we need to make sure we understand before we can really get into leaderboards and why you want to use those for your events. So peer to peer, we use that term a lot in Swell. And what we really mean when we're talking about that is competitive fundraising strategies. So you're pitting either individuals, individual fundraisers, or groups, or teams, or tables. You're having them compete in a friendly way against each other to raise more money and to get accolades or prizes, whatever it is you determine. So that's basically what we're talking about when we use the term peer-to-peer. There are other meanings, and again, we could spend a lot of time on that. Just a basic definition today, though. All right, so let's go into talk about our leaderboards first, and I promise we're going to get into our Swell dashboard in just a few minutes. Right now, though, I want to go through the leaderboards that you have access to. So you have access to 4 of them. You have top fundraiser, you have most social, groups or top teams, and top table or teams. And you can use any combination of those. You can turn them all on, you can turn them all off, you can turn 1 on and 3 off, whatever you choose, and you can rename them. So if you don't want your fundraisers to be called fundraisers, maybe it's your board members, so you want to just call them board members, you can do that in the settings, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So this is basically what they are. Top fundraiser. This leaderboard tracks the amount each fundraiser has raised, including their ticket purchase. Groups or top teams. If you're using teams that have an unlimited number of participants, this is the kind of leaderboard you want. Otherwise, you want to use the table or team. And both of those are collaborative. They show you the amount fundraised by that entire group or that entire team. And then one that we get questions about the most is most social. So the most social leaderboard tracks the guests' awareness building. It tracks how many people click on their personal fundraising link. So they'll send that out either on Facebook or maybe on X or Instagram. Maybe they're sending it in an email or even in a chat message. However they send it out, when somebody comes back to their page, their social score will go out. So it doesn't have anything to do with the actual posts on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. It has to do with people coming back to the site from a specific person's efforts. Hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, ask me a question. I'm happy to answer that. We also have a PDF about this. So this will be in your resources section, which you'll get in the takeaway email too. So we have a PDF that explains all of those, and you can read through those a little bit more slowly. All right. So with that, we want to go into our Swell dashboard now. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to go into just one of our test events again. So we're going to do that. Share screen. And all right. So we're going to all right, I hope you are able to see that. All right, I'm in the Swell dashboard. If you can't see that, please let me know in the chat if you're not able to see where I am in the Swell dashboard. So I'm in one of our test events again. And to get to our leaderboard settings, we can get to them in 2 different places. So we're going to talk about how to set them up for the front page of your Swell site. And we're also going to talk about the display tool, which we've talked about in another one of these sessions. Brooke talked about that when she talked about QR codes and leaderboards and the simple display earlier this year. So there's a link to that also in your resources center. So we're going to talk about setup first. So this is how you would set those up. Sorry about that. Let's go back into test. All right, so we're going to go to setup here, and then we're going to go all the way over to, I'm on a smaller screen today. I'm on a laptop, so it's kind of squinched, but yours may be all the way over to the right. Mine, I have to go to the second row. So we're going to settings, and we're going to look down at leaderboards. So it makes sense so far, right? So this one, this checkbox here, that shows you how to turn them on or off, all of them off, or some of them on. You want to use some of them. So we're going to leave that checked, and we're going to look at what the front of this website looks like. And we're just going to click that, open in a new page. Okay, so we've got our top fundraisers right now. We have our top fundraisers on, our most social, and our table leaderboard. We can change that around a little bit if we want to. Again, we're back in setup. We want to go over to settings and then down to leaderboards. Right, so if we want to turn off the fundraising total, this is a brand new option. It's brand new within the last 24 hours, guys. So if you want to turn off that fundraising total on your page, you can now do that yourself. So right here up at the top where it says you've helped raise, if you don't want that on, you just check that little box under leaderboard here. So for now, we're going to leave that on, and we're going to show our leaderboards. We want the top fundraisers there, but maybe we want to call this board, like I mentioned before. So we're just going to backspace over that label, and we're going to call it board members. Right, and then we've made changes, so we want to hit save here. And the other thing we can change, so I noticed that top table just said tables, so we're going to say top table, just to make that a little bit clearer. And then our groups leaderboard, that's the tables, that the other group, that's the other team that's not tables teams, it's the bigger team. So we don't have that for this event, so we're going to leave that turned off. We're going to hit save changes. All right, and you see when I go here and I refresh this page, you'll see my changes reflected. So top tables, most social, board members. Now, if I wanted to turn any of those off, again, all I have to do is uncheck that box. Maybe I just want to focus on the tables and I don't want to do individual fundraisers for this event. So we can do that by just doing that. And then it's going to resize to that space and just show the two leaderboards. And that's really how you set up your leaderboards in the back end. You can change what a table is called in table page settings. So that's the same place, setup, settings, then we're going to go over to table page. And if you want to change what that's called, maybe you're using teams instead of table. So you could change this to team. And of course, you're going to save changes anytime you save changes. And then you'd want to go back and change that leaderboard to top teams because that's what you're using instead of tables. So this would be top teams. And we'll go here and refresh just so you can see. All right, so there we go. And of course, our tables are actually named tables, so it makes sense to leave them as tables for this specific event. But just, as a sample, this is how you do that. The other place we can change our leaderboards and show our leaderboards is in our event tools, and this is for the simple display. So you remember this from Brooke's earlier, just one thing. She went into some more settings there than we're going to go into today. We're just going to look at the leaderboards, turning those on and off. That's what we're going to focus on. So we're going to go over here to event tools in the left-hand menu and then click under fundraising display. We want to click go. So we're going to go there. All right, and you see it's going to scroll up our number there for us, the amount raised. Then there's a little settings icon here, settings, and then we get to choose which of our leaderboards we want on. Now look, with the last one, we could put as many as we wanted. And we could still do that here. We can put them, but you see if we want the total amount raised, that disappears if we put more than 2. So we want to make sure that we're only choosing our focus, that whatever we want to focus in on for this thing. So if we're focusing on our table competition, that's the one we want to highlight and we want to leave the rest off. You can put 2 on there. If you switch it to this stadium width, you have the stadium width option here. So if you switch it to that, you see it switches everything vertical, and board members is going to appear on top and top teams below, or tables. It's best if you're going to switch it to stadium. So this is like if you're in a stadium and you have one of those vertical screens, or you're displaying on a screen that's vertical, then you'd want to switch to that. Choose your favorite 1 leaderboard instead of 2. Just choose 1 leaderboard for that. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to switch back over into sessions here and see if there are any questions at this point Are there any questions on setting up your leaderboards um, for your site or setting them up for your simple display? Any questions on those two things before we move on to some tips for you today? I'm going to give you just a couple minutes in case you're typing it out. Sometimes I don't type as fast as I want to, so I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to type that out in case you have questions. All right, it looks like we're good. So we're going to move into our tips then. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to keep your goals in mind. So your fundraiser, your event has specific goals. So you want to talk about, you want to think about what the purpose of your event is. You also want to keep in mind that you want to keep everything really simple. So that's going to be our next tip. We'll go into that in just a second. But as far as keeping your goals in mind, what's your main purpose of your event? Is this to build awareness for your cause? Is this a kickoff event? Is this a celebration at the end of a campaign? Or are you trying to raise $200,000 in the room? What is it that you're trying to do? Decide that first. Decide who is going to be in the room with you. What is it that they want? What are they motivated by? Are they extrinsically motivated? Are they intrinsically motivated? So leaderboards traditionally appeal to people who are more extrinsically motivated. So they're motivated by they want to get the trophy, or they want to go to the dessert table first, or they want to be the top competing team in your talent show. So they're motivated by those external things. Those who are more intrinsically motivated, if you've got that kind of audience, then you want to look at maybe your tables leaderboard. That's more collaborative. And so a lot of times people who are motivated intrinsically, they will do better with the tables leaderboard because they're working not for themselves, but for a group. So if that makes sense, let me know, or if you have questions. So you want to think about who's in the room and whether or not you want to foster this sense of competition between the people who are in the room. And in doing that, so there's some research too, also linked in your resources today, but there's some research that says those who are more extrinsically motivated, they are more motivated by leaderboards. Those who are more intrinsically motivated, they're less motivated by the leaderboards, which we just said, but they're not turned off by them. So you don't need to worry about, they just won't do it. So they're not motivated to do it one way or the other. It's okay with them if you have it, but it doesn't really matter to them. All right. So for our next tip, you want to keep your things, your leaderboards, your names. There's this great book on web design. It's many years old now, but it's called Don't Make Them Think. And the same thing applies when you're thinking about how to gamify your events, how to create a game out of your fundraising. You want to make it really simple for your audience to understand. You want, so here's an example from an event that we've seen done in the past. And so the instructions are very, very simple. Use your mobile phone, open the camera, center the QR code in the center of the screen, and click the link that pops up. Okay, so that's how you donate. You want it to be very clear how to join the competition and how to participate in the competition. If you've named your products, if you've named them, maybe your tables are called rows. Okay, so then you want to make sure that you name your leaderboards rows, or maybe it's sections. If this is so we've had some veterans events where they have sections, or maybe it's just table numbers. So your tables, your list of fundraising things that they can pick from fundraisers are table numbers, because that's what you want to participate. Make it very clear to them how to participate and make simple instructions. Okay. And then thirdly, use your power for good. So everybody in that room is there for one of three reasons. They're there because they know you. Maybe this isn't their first event. Maybe it is their first event. Somebody invited them to sit at their table, and so this is their introduction to you. So they want to learn more about you and your cause, what you do and how you help. So they want to do that. They also want to have fun, and they want to build a sense of community. Those are the three goals that they have for being in that room. So use your power that you have to make this game fun for them and to foster that sense of community. Remember that this is a friendly competition. So some of those people who are more intrinsically motivated, they you want to make sure that they don't feel like they have to participate. You don't want them to leave with a sense of guilt. You want to make sure that they are appreciated within the room and that they don't feel like they're pressured to participate if they don't want to. By the same token, those who are extrinsically motivated, you want to foster that conversation with other fundraisers within the room, within the tables, to foster that competition. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm dog sitting at my sister's, and I have their wall of games behind me. So sorry about that. Their dog is blind, and so every noise sets her off a little bit. Sorry. Back to use your power for good. I think we've covered that, so I'm going to skip to the next one. Remember that leaderboards are only part of your strategy. So this is that same event, the one that I was telling you about with, I showed you the program. So this is a large event. It actually happens in a stadium. That's why you'll see the leaderboard here, over here on the right. You see that it's vertical, that stadium width that we just talked about, because this is in Texas Stadium. So that's where the Texas Rangers play for you baseball fans out there. And you can see it's a huge event. Okay, sorry about that. I put her in her house, so hopefully that'll help. So remember that leaderboards are only part of your strategy. If you throw your clothes in the washing machine, but you don't put soap in it and you don't turn it on, it's a great tool, but it's not going to work for you. The same is true of leaderboards. It's a great tool, but if you don't call people's attention to it and have your MC or whoever's running your show at the event, if you don't have them mention it and mention it often, then it's not going to work for you. Display it, yes, but also refer to it. Okay. And so finally, remember, winning isn't everything, but it sure helps, right? So remember to incentivize your leaderboards. Give prizes. What do they get if they come out at the top of that social leaderboard or they come out at the top of the table leaderboard? What do they get? So you can spend money or get things of great value donated, but you don't have to. So I have a couple of ideas for prizes, but I'd also really love to know your ideas for prizes. So if you have any, I'll show you some samples in the next slide, but if you have any ideas, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A and share those with us. So I've written them out here. Some ideas are, so I like to think the reason that there's this little star there, by the way, is I kind of think of prizes as the equivalent of a gold star, right? So it doesn't have to be expensive. I taught ESL, English as a second or other language. A few years ago, I volunteered to do that. And my classes were on Sundays, so it was really easy to be just tired and at the end of the work week and not want to go. So attendance was kind of low sometimes. So I put up just a little board that had everybody's name with a row, and I gave them a sticker, a gold star sticker. And these were adults. I gave them gold star stickers when they would come, and they were so excited to go put their little star up next to their name and see their progress. throughout the year, throughout the course, to see how many times they were able to keep that streak going. So think of it like a gold star, right? So you can do raffle tickets or drink tickets if you're doing that at your event, or maybe a small trophy. You could do gift baskets filled with items from local businesses or gift cards even. Maybe they get first choice at the dessert table. We have a client who does this event in Hawaii every year, and that's what the top table gets. And let me tell you, it gets competitive in that room because their desserts are really great. So maybe they get recognition at the event or on social media or physical items like t-shirts. Now, keep your introverts in mind if this is something you want to do. Don't call somebody who's highly introverted up in front of the entire group at your event to present them with accolades and thank them, because it's really mortifying for them. So keep in mind who's your audience, remember who your audience is, and keep that in mind when you're thinking about prizes. Maybe this is a junior board meeting, and so one of the things that your attendees want to get out of this is they want to meet some contacts and they want to further their career. Invite them to a board meeting, to a regular board meeting, have them attend there. Generally, your board members are in the business community and they have a little bit more of a career history than somebody who's just starting out. So they have some connections, they have some advice, and that's really valuable to the right person. Think about your audience, what it is that motivates them, what they would want, and give your prizes like that. All right, we are at the end, and I'm going to do a quick review. We covered a lot, and I'm sorry for the few interruptions. I know we had a couple of those, but if you have any final questions, go ahead and type them in the chat and Q&A, and I will go look at them. And while you do that, I'm going to just do a quick review of what we covered today. So we did a very short intro to extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. So motivated by external forces, motivated by intrinsic things, internal things, and the combination of those two things. We talked about peer-to-peer fundraising and what that is. We talked about the types of leaderboards that are available with your Swell license, how to set them up for your displays, and how to set them up in leaderboards for your website. We went through a few tips for using leaderboards, and then we went through some prizes. So with that, are there any questions? All right, so I'm not seeing any questions. All right, I have several resources for you. So if you click on the agenda, remember that's on the left-hand side, just show agenda down at the bottom. So there's several agendas, several resources listed in the agenda here. And I'm gonna copy those over and send them to you in your takeaway. But just to go through a couple, so there's a leaderboard overview in your help desk, and there's a direct link. There's the PDF that I mentioned with all of the leaderboards described. That's linked in that article. I also gave you the direct link to it. So if you just want to get that PDF, you can. And then that the simple fundraising display, there's that. And oh, I see, I didn't do Brooke's QR code, just one thing. So I'm going to put that in for you too. You'll get that in your takeaways. Make a quick note. And then from our blog, we have a blog called Events or Peer-to-Peer Campaigns. And so it talks about how to make your event more of a peer-to-peer competitive kind of campaign. And then there's several articles from some other sources. So that one that I was talking about, it's more of a scholarly article, but do points, levels, and leaderboards harm intrinsic motivation? Their conclusion is no, it does not. So you can read that synopsis or go and read the entire article there. And then there's a podcast episode, the last thing I put. So it's from a podcast called In Before the Lock, which is really about building community. So it's not directly applicable to this, but it is applicable in some ways because it's about motivation, and there's some good discussions about what motivates people, and you could apply that to peer-to-peer. So just put that in there in case you want to take a look. So what's next? So next time, which is in 2 weeks, and that's going to be August 21st, Brooke is going to be talking about fundraising in an election year. So now there's a lot of fear around that. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty in an election year. So she's going to be addressing some of that and giving you some tips to help you get through. So it's a little bit different in that I don't know that there will be too many technical things to do in Swell, but there'll be some good advice.